Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Bala Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama. Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Jai Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Jai Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad Gita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad Gita Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath He Chai Goshai Kori Chanada Bandhan Jahar He Chai Goshai Jar Mohitar Das Tatsabara Parareno Mara Panchagras Tajera Charana Shevi Bhakta Sange Vash Janame Janame Hoy Ei Abhilash Chai Goshai Jabe Braje Kolobash Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korilen Prakash Muni Ananda Bola Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Bola Bhaja Vrindavan Ananda Bola Hari 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 Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Padam Ajyayaman Shri Guru Vaishnava Padam Ajyayaman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyash Hari Nam Sankirtana Rashe Naratamodar Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol O Nitai Gauranga, Nitai Gauranga Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachinandan Jai Sachinandan, Jai Sachinandan Jai Sachinandan, Jaya Sachinandan Gaura Hare, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parashikacharya Stotrashata Shri Srimad Srila Vaishnavarand Bhaktivedanta Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Thakur Haridas Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Rani Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Samsthapak Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Shyam Sundar Ki Jai. Shri Shri Krishna Balarama Ki Jai. Go Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana 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 Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira vanachari 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 Jai Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira vanachari Jamuna Tira vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Krishna Balaram Jai Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jai Lalita Vishakha Radhe Shyam. Lalita Vishakha Jaya Radhe Shyam. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bo. Hare Krishna. Nama Om. Om Jnaniptimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Priye. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Madgavirapi Gopala Swikuryat Kripaya Yadi Tadaiva Sampayah Pitva Hrishayustat Priyajanaha. Does anyone have any questions or any comments or any suggestions about what we should discuss? Because I haven't planned anything in particular to say. Sorry? Well, okay, Srila Prabhupada Kitab. That's pretty much covers everything. Everything we know. You had a raised hand? Okay, that pretty much covers everything that I know. Well, what to say? We're all here by the divine grace of Srila Prabhupada. His divine grace. Whose divine grace? Whose divine grace? Whose divine grace? Whose divine grace? Krishna's, Srimati Radharani's divine grace. That's Srila Prabhupada. Krishna's grace comes through Srimati Radharani. Srimati Radharani's grace comes through Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya's grace comes through Nityananda. Nityananda's grace comes from Srila Prabhupada. And And we have whoever's representing Srila Prabhupada, he's also representing that same divine grace. Somehow or other, I was pulled out of the ocean of Maya. At least I was thrown a life preserver in, well, I don't really remember when. I grew up in Los Angeles, about 10 blocks away from the Los Angeles temple of Sri Sri Rukmini Dwarkadhish. And I don't remember a time that I didn't know about the devotees or had heard about them back in my childhood sometime. And we used to see them all the time. We used to ride our bicycles by the temple and make fun of them. But I was a little bit pious, and I always wanted to be a priest. My mother told me about a year before she died that my paternal grandmother had predicted that this boy will be a priest. She just didn't know which religion it would be in. But I was always wanting to join the monasteries or the missions as we have in Southern California. Anybody been to Southern California? You know about the missions? So many missions are there. So I used to take them all there to see those places. Anyway, so I had some religious sentiment, but really I didn't learn anything even about Christianity until I read Srila Prabhupada's books. In fact, by that time, I had studied several different editions of Bhagavad Gita, and I'd even begun to study Sanskrit as well. Very young age, maybe 14, 15. But I didn't understand any of those editions of Bhagavad Gita that I read. Why? Because the persons who published them also didn't understand them, which is the same thing. They were not coming in parampara. Evam parampara praptam. Imam rajarshrayovidaho. Saintly kings could understand this because it was coming in paramparas. As soon as you take it out of the parampara, then nobody can understand anymore. It creates confusion. Even now, we have to consider, we have a very great responsibility on our shoulders only. That means not just my shoulders, your shoulders. You have to know what these books contain, and you have to live what these books contain. Otherwise, the parampara stops. Do you understand that? Something is cut out of the parampara if you don't maintain it. That means the parts you don't like to talk about, the parts that you don't like to admit into your own life, everything, you have to embrace it. That's a serious responsibility we discussed the other night. Remember what we said about the austerity of knowledge? You have to assimilate the knowledge, you have to apply the knowledge, and then you have to convince somebody else to do likewise. It's not easy. It's an austerity. Anyway, so Srila Prabhupada did that. While we all slept, or were not yet born, as the case may be, Srila Prabhupada worked hard into the night. What hours did he usually work? From like 1 in the morning until 6 a.m. He went to bed at 9 or 10, and he woke up at 12 or 1. And he was all night translating these books just so that we could sit here tonight in Portland, Oregon. Are we in Portland or are we in Hillsboro or Beaverton? Or we're in Portland proper. Okay, so just so that we could sit here and talk about these things. Otherwise, raise your hand if you would have known anything about Bhagavad Gita if it wasn't for Prabhupada. Nothing. Huh? You raising your hand? Yeah. No, we wouldn't have known anything because nobody says what Prabhupada says. Everyone's afraid to say what Prabhupada says. Nobody can afford to say what Prabhupada says. Why? Because they're full of holes themselves. And we can't be like that. We can't stay like that. We have to become proper representatives. That's what it means when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Jare dekhe tare kaha Krishna upadesh amara guru haya tare desh. So, bharata bhumite hoilo manushya janma jar janma sarthak kori karapar. If you've taken birth in India, count yourself as blessed, but consider that along with that blessing comes an awesome responsibility that you have to represent. You have to act as an ambassador of this spiritual culture to the rest of the world because they don't have it. We were talking about the word dharma. What does dharma mean? Let's just take an experiment here. What does dharma mean? Anybody? You don't even have to raise your hand. Just shout it out. Prescribed duty. What else? Huh? Natural propensity, okay. Way of life, what else? To do that which pleases Krishna. What else? Civilized way of life. Anything else? Shastric Praman, okay, maybe. What else? You see the problem? All different answers are coming out. I did this research myself. I looked through all of Srila Prabhupada's Veda base. If we lack real learning, because we're not hearing every day, we rely on a Veda-based search. Anyway, I did that, and I found 32 ways that Prabhupada translates this word dharma. And the problem is that it means all those things all at once. All of them all at once, it means. And that's why we don't really have a word in English that really does the job. That's why you have to translate it in 32 different ways. There's no one word. Why is there no such one word in English? Anybody knows what I say in my lectures? You've already heard this before. Why do we not have a single word to subsume all these different nuances of meaning? Because we don't have the concept in English. People who speak English don't think like this, unfortunately. And you have to change that, friends. You have to do it. We're going to die in a few years, probably within a decade, maybe 2. What are you going to do about it? They're so young, they're giggling. But it's serious. So, Srila Prabhupada got a sense of this after his spiritual master left the planet. After our spiritual master leaves the planet, that's also likely to happen for most of you. Do you realize this? Within another decade or 2. So get ready. When the spiritual master leaves the planet, you have to do some very serious thinking. And you have to figure out how to deal, especially with your God brothers. If you think it's hard to deal with them now, wait until they become the Acharya. So, you know, it's an awesome responsibility. And Srila Prabhupada saw that because he felt that nobody in the Gaudiya Math was really executing the orders of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. They certainly didn't form the GBC. They didn't really preach worldwide as in the way that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his father envisioned. So Srila Prabhupada was not so happy about that. Tamal Krishna Goswami told me that if you are not satisfied with the association that Krishna has arranged for you, first of all, considering that Krishna has arranged it for you, the best thing is if you learn how to better appreciate that association, because that requires some purification of your own heart. If you, for whatever reason, cannot do that, then the second best thing is to proactively seek out whatever association you require or feel you desire. And it's never been easier to do that than it is in 2023. All you have to do is push a button. You can be in any morning program anywhere in the world, practically speaking. So the association is available very easily now, and we should seek it out. Tadeva sadhyatam, Narad Muni says in his Narad Bhakti Sutra. Twice. When he repeats something twice, it's going to be on the Antima Pariksha. So, like when the teacher writes it on the board, zarur, it's going to be on the test. So that's what he says, and that's the second best thing to do. The best thing to do is learn that there's gold in every heart if you know how to mine that gold. And we should learn that fine art. Because it's not like there's a Mahatma every day. It's actually pretty rare. Anyway, if that doesn't also work, second option is not satisfactory either, then the third option is not so easy for most of us. But it is the example of Srila Prabhupada. You create the association that you want. That's what he did. And it's not easy, as I said, but he was uniquely prepared to do so. These things happen when the Acharya leaves the planet. Now, Srila Prabhupada had this attitude. He had such integrity, and he had such faith, and he had such intelligence and purity. He was uniquely qualified to do this, but his character was so elevated that he was one of those persons who just really took it naturally. Like Prahlad Maharaj, Several times, if you read 7th canto elsewhere in the Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj repeatedly reiterates or at least implies this idea that he has a responsibility, and the first responsibility is to his own spiritual master. He says this all the time, Prahlad. That's one of his hallmarks. Another one of his hallmarks is his genuine compassion for others. And Srila Prabhupada appreciated these things about Prahlad, and he embodied these aspects of Prahlad's character as well in his own. So Krishna sent him some very fortunate souls, very highly qualified in their own right, personalities such as Tamal Krishna Goswami. People ask me about him all the time because I had some 30 years of his association. And, you know, I always say the same thing about him, that the number one characteristic, at least that impressed me about him, is he had this natural consciousness, awareness, faith, and just, you know, consciousness of duty to his spiritual master, faith in his spiritual master. He was a walking, talking, living embodiment of Guru Nishtha. Guru Nishtha. What does Guru Nishtha mean? To be fixed at the lotus feet of one's spiritual master. That is the ultimate qualification for taking to spiritual life. Kyon? Because yasya prasadad bhagavad prasado. Yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. If you don't please the bona fide spiritual master, then how you can get the supreme perfection? And if you somehow please him, then automatically Bhagavan is also pleased. This is the summum bonum of all the Shastras. Acharyam mam vijaniyan navamanyeta karhichit. Navamanyeta karhichit. What is the second half of the verse? Namartya buddhya suyeta. Kyon? Sarva deva mayo guruhu. This is Krishna's own words. Krishna speaks this. He says one should understand that the Acharya is me. And even in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that the bona fide spiritual master, or the Acharya, is a Prakash Swarup of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. We know that Krishna expands in different forms, right? We have two categories of expansions. What are those? Yes. So his direct expansions and his indirect, we can say, indirect expansions. But Prakash Sarup, this is Krishna himself. It's not something other than Krishna. Even though the spiritual master is not Vishnu Tattva, he's not Krishna at the same time. And Prabhupada makes that very clear. How do you understand this? The spiritual master is Krishna's direct form expanded, but at the same time he's not Krishna. How is it possible to understand this? Who has an answer? That's also stated. He's the external manifestation of the Supersoul. But rationally, how do you process the fact that he's Krishna and not Krishna at the same time? He's as good as Krishna. Okay, these are good answers. They're not incorrect. Representative of Krishna, also correct. All yes? Okay. But I'm talking logic alone. The logic, how do you understand it logically? You don't understand it logically. It's not logical entirely, at least. It's called achintya bheda abheda. He's simultaneously one and different at the same time. He's God and he's not God also. He's Jiva Tattva, but he's Krishna's own expansion. Anyway, so Krishna says, Acharyam mam vijaniyan. You should know this. He's me. And what's the next line? Acharyam mam vijaniyan. Who knows this verse? Raise your hand. One person raises their hand. Shame on you. Really, somebody has to say it. I'm here in this seat. You have to know these things. You have to read Srila Prabhupada's books daily. He wrote these books daily. Why can't you even read them daily? Where's your gratitude? Anyone a disciple of Radhanath Swami? Raise your hand. They're all too shy. How many times do you hear Radhanath Swami speak about the importance of gratitude? So often, I hear it at least. We've been given something for free. He worked hard for us at an advanced age, and we can't even open his books? What is the hypocrisy when we sing, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite Te Korya Aikya, and we don't do it? No, it just takes a few minutes for someone who's intelligent to suss it out. And what kind of people are these? We can't be that kind of hypocrite. It will not carry on the parampara. So, that's why Krishna sends people like Tamal Krishna Goswami, because he took it very seriously. And I saw this so many times. Anyway, he was the living, breathing, walking exemplar of this. Yasya Devi para bhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau. Tasya iti kateta hirtaha prakashante mahatmanaha. The Shvetashvatar Upanishad, this is literally the last verse, the very final verse of that Upanishad. And what does it say? Somebody who can understand these things is that person who has the same faith in Krishna as he has in his Guru, and vice versa. We have to have that. And he had that. So from the very start, he very quickly took to Krishna consciousness, very quickly became prominent in our society, and very quickly endeared himself to Prabhupada, so much so that Srila Prabhupada, frankly, we can say that Srila Prabhupada depended on him in so many ways. He knew that Srila Prabhupada knew that to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world was not one man's work. He required many hands. Just like the sun. Here in Portland, we don't see the sun. They say there are two seasons, winter and July 4th. But Dashashatakadadhari, Kalmashadvangsakari, the sun is described. He's got 10,000 hands. What are those hands? His kiranas. So Prabhupada also had about 5,000 hands. Who are those? His disciples. And they're reaching out all over the place, and they're trying to illumine this dark place. Tamal Krishna Goswami was one of those really, really bright ones. And he took to it so nicely, and he gave a nice example in his own life, right from the very beginning, of how to be completely surrendered. So many, many cases. Anyone has been to Mayapur Dham? Raise your hand. Yeah, so here's another person you have to show your gratitude to. His Samadhi Mandir is there. Why? Because that land would not exist if it weren't for Tamal Krishna Goswami. What did he do? He had to go there and spend days haggling with these Sheikh brothers, the Muslims who own the land there. And, it was actually dangerous also. And then, when they were building the temple, he wasn't done. Even to make sure the temple got built, what did he do? Anybody know? He went and made sure that the bricks they bought were good, because in the 1970s it was very difficult to get concrete, very difficult to get construction material. Same thing, same problem we had in Vrindavan. But he not only purchased the bricks, but because he was Tamal Krishna Goswami, he did not leave those bricks that he purchased until he saw them on the land in Mayapur, and even then, he slept on top of those bricks at night to make sure that nobody disturbed them or stole anything. He rode in the lorry all the way from Calcutta along with those bricks to make sure that this was done properly. That's the way he did things. That was his sense of dedication, devotion. Wanting to please Srila Prabhupada so much. He had this passion to please Srila Prabhupada that was insatiable. It was like the greed of a miser or the lust of a lecher. He was all the passion that drives us in this material world. It drove him in the spiritual world, where he is now, unless he's still assisting Prabhupada somewhere else, which he probably is doing. But so he took on such austerities, and that's why Srila Prabhupada saw no one more fit than him to entrust 1/3 of the world's population. Who? China. In those days, it was not feasible to go. They found out quickly. because the Cultural Revolution in China, if you know anything about Asian history, the Communist Party was purging itself of so-called corrupt individuals, and it was really dangerous, actually. So Prabhupada told him, don't go yet. But Prabhupada asked him to go, and he did. I saw this about him. Whatever instructions he could not fulfill in Prabhupada's presence, I know at least 3 cases in which he did this. He fulfilled them as soon as he could after Prabhupada left. One was to go to China, which he did. And there's many devotees in China now because of him. Him and a few assistants only, but it was him who did it. He did it. And what else? Prabhupada wanted to go to Govardhan in the last days. He also took Prabhupada to Govardhan many years later. Prabhupada wanted to open restaurants. He felt that if our temples have restaurants, they'll be successful. And every temple that has a restaurant, you see, it's successful, isn't it? Can you name one? Kalachanji's. What else? Los Angeles? Also. So many. Wherever there's a restaurant, the temple will be thriving. Wherever there's no restaurant, pretty quiet. So he knew that. So he fulfilled that also wherever he went. And anyway, the whole life is like this. Every day he's doing something like this that Prabhupada asked. One of my godbrothers came and came to assist him because at some point he had a prostate operation, and that operation was through malpractice bungled up, and he had to go through a lot of pain. So one godbrother came to assist him, and this godbrother was telling me that when he was trying to fill Tamal Krishna Goswami's shoes, so to speak, take care of his own business while Goswami was resting, he said the phone was ringing off the hook all day long because somebody's calling up from Israel, wants to know, what did Prabhupada say about this? Somebody's calling up from London and says, what was Prabhupada's policy on such and such an issue? What did Prabhupada do in the case of that individual who did whatever? Only Tamal Krishna Goswami knew these things because only he had the faith and dedication and insight and intelligence to take advantage of every moment of Srila Prabhupada's association while he could. Can someone please bring me some Gungana Pani, please? Gungana Pani. Maybe half a glass. And, sorry, where was I? Yeah, he knew everything because he had the insight to take advantage of every moment of Prabhupada's association that he could get. This is another thing he told me. We say that the Vapu and the Vani, of the Vapu Sangha and Vani of the spiritual master, which one is more important? Vani. Why? Yeah, why is it more important than personal interaction? Good. And he's a new man. And he knows. So the personal instruction, personal association is temporary. It's very intense, very inspiring, very enlightening, but it's temporary. It will be for a few years only. Bookmark that. And the Vani is eternal. Therefore, in some sense, you can say it's more important. But Firpi, he said, I never lost an opportunity to take as much association of Srila Prabhupada as I could possibly get. And the proof is in the pictures, isn't it? You've seen the photos. And he's always standing right there next to Srila Prabhupada. Because of that, he knew everything that Prabhupada was doing. He knew everything. He was assisting everything. He was making it happen. And he had this drive to please Srila Prabhupada because he really had faith in this principle, Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. Anybody know the story of the key in Mumbai? Prabhupada had an almari in Mumbai. And in that almari, he kept another key to a different safe. And in that safe, he kept the key to a third safe. That he kept all the most important documents of the entire International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Bank account numbers, title deeds, adi, adi, adi. And keys and to other almaris and this kind of thing. Very, very important thing. And Tamal Krishna Goswami was so driven, an individual, that he was constantly wishing that Srila Prabhupada would place enough confidence in me that he would let me hold that key. This is his man ki chaha. So he was always trying to please Srila Prabhupada, and one day Srila Prabhupada gave him the key. What happened? He lost it. And he had to go through the whole Mumbai, Hare Krishna land, every square inch. He had teams of people searching everywhere all day long for days. This is going on. Big drama. Thank you. And, nobody was able to locate this key anywhere. He himself, because he wouldn't entrust this to anyone else, he personally scoured every square millimeter of Srila Prabhupada's office in Mumbai, personally. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, maybe more than that. But you get the idea. And anybody who knew Tamal Krishna Goswami, you know he was very thorough and very detailed and very, careful in everything that he did. He still couldn't find the key. So what did he do? He had to go to Srila Prabhupada and say, Srila Prabhupada, I lost the key. Now for a person like him to be able to say this, I can't imagine how difficult it must have been, but he did it. And Prabhupada's first words were, call the entire GBC. So Tamal Krishna Goswami is thinking, oh my God, are they going to throw me out of the movement? What's Prabhupada going to disown me? It's like unthinkable what I've done. I mean, seriously, if just, in terms of just assets alone, if you think about the ramifications, this key is missing. So he was really upset about that. But the main thing that hurt him was that, he just destroyed his credibility in Prabhupada's eyes, he thought. So anyway, Prabhupada eventually, he had a copy made, and then Prabhupada said that, well, anyway, it was a bad luck if you can make a copy that quickly and open it. So it was a non-issue. It became, they just changed the lock and it was done. But maybe it was in 1978 or so. I don't remember exactly, but Tamal Krishna Goswami was again in Mumbai, and he was again in Prabhupada's office, and he was sitting on the sofa, and his hands went like in between the cushions, and the key was there. The most obvious place that he had searched 6 times and had people searching. Somehow the key came back. But it was too late. Prabhupada was already gone. Anyway, I don't know how I got on this topic, but we were talking about Guru Nishtha and how he embodied that. So this was his whole and sole concern in life, was to endear himself to Srila Prabhupada, to manifest in his character full surrender, to train up the devotees. This is another point that is well taken. After Srila Prabhupada left around 1978 or 1979, 1978, if you can dig up an old Srila Prabhupada Vyas Puja from that year. Some temples have libraries. Vrindavan has a library. I hope they have this one. But his offering that year was of a markedly different tone than in general, previous to that time. And from 1978, he addressed his entire attention to the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness as their servant, and being in a unique position to help them. He was definitely in that mood. Some people misunderstood that as self-aggrandizement. He's trying to take over everything, because he had that nature of being a controller and being also a little bit imperious at times. He could be very difficult. But anyway, that was all in his manifestation, I think, of his mood of great faith in Srila Prabhupada and great dedication to Srila Prabhupada. He really embodied that. So, Acharjam mam vijaniyan navamanyeta karhichit. Never at any time should you think less of your spiritual master, Diksha Guru or Shiksha Guru. In Srila Prabhupada's time, as I recall in the 1970s, there was never any real distinction between Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru. There was never a need, because everyone was initiated by Prabhupada and everybody got their Shiksha from Prabhupada at the same time. This issue came up a little later. It is an aspect of our philosophy that is there traditionally, but it really only came to its present level of significance, I think, after Srila Prabhupada left, because sometimes it so happens a person is initiated by one guru, but he gets most of his instruction from someone else. One of the things I know is that your Shiksha Guru should bring you closer to your Diksha Guru, not further away. That's very, very important. Sometimes people don't like their gurus or don't want to surrender, simply. And so they go find somebody who's telling them what they want to hear, and then they just surrender to that so-called surrender. Not surrender. Surrender means, I give up, right? Surrender means, what is it? The word surrender. This is not a Sanskrit word. This is an English word. What does it mean to surrender? It means you don't want to do something, but you're defeated and you have to do it. You have to give up. This is what is wanted vis-a-vis the spiritual master. And it's not easy. There's no easy way to kill the false ego, is there? We were saying, Guru Deva Kripa Bindu Diya Koro E Dashe. What does it mean? Who knows the translation? Tell me what it means. आगे बढ़ो. Trinapheka atihin. Koro e dase. Trinapheka atihin. What does it mean? Make this servant more humble than a blade of grass. So, in effect, what are you asking for when you pray like that? Tell me what you're asking for. You're asking to be humiliated, are you not? Make me more humble than a blade of grass. Are you ready to do that, actually? It's not so easy thing. But even a person of his imperious, controlling, domineering kind of nature, that he was able to do that with Srila Prabhupada is incredible. And it's glorious, because it tells us what we should be doing. Trinapeka atihin. Make me more humble than a blade of grass. So, navamanyeta kardhachit means, do not ever think less of this person. And what are the ways in which we might think less of the Acharya? Namartya bhudhyasu yeta. Don't think that he's an ordinary person, ordinary martyajan, mortal. And don't envy him. Na asuyeta. Why? Because Sarva Deva Mayo Guruhu, the spiritual master, is the embodiment of all the gods. All the deities are manifest in his character. Do we believe this? Srila Prabhupada was always asking us, are you convinced that Krishna is God? Do you believe that the spiritual master is his representative? That's the tangible proof that you believe that Krishna is God, if you've accepted your spiritual master in toto like that. So Srila Prabhupada had this attitude. Tamal Krishna Goswami had this attitude. Others they may have this attitude. We should have this attitude. That's the real point. And that's why we have the association of these great souls. And if we study Srila Prabhupada's books every day, if we follow every instruction that we hear in those books and become very staunch devotees, then these things will naturally manifest in our character as well. And then we'll be in a condition that we can actually help someone else. Janma sarthak kari karo parupakar, as we described. Anything else? You wanted to hear about Prabhupada. I told you about Prabhupada. No questions? Yes. Yeah. Srimad Bhagavatam says that to be situated in our natural, eternal, constitutional position, that's purity. It's synonymous with liberation. Muktir hitvan yatha rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. To free ourselves from the misidentification that we tend to have with temporary things, and instead to be situated within our eternal constitutional position. What is our eternal constitutional position? To serve Krishna. Purity means I'm serving Krishna and I'm happy doing so. I'm not attached to other things. I'm not bewildered by other things. I'm serving Krishna happily in my constitution. That's purity. To remove all the impure things from something, that's the definition of purity, right? So all the impure things means all the temporary things that we try to hang on to or think about or meditate on or run after. Everything temporary. But to do only eternal things, that's purity. It's understood that we have attachments. It's also understood that those attachments are generally material. You know, attachments for car, career, prestige, money, the opposite sex, whatever it is. You know, people like to, all the things, that sense gratifications and mental gratifications that we run after in this material world, these are the temporary things that snag us and keep us coming back again and again. Kyonki yam yam vapi smaram bhavam tyajantyante kalevaram. If you spend your whole life absorbed in these things, how in the world are you going to remember God at the time of death? It won't happen. And therefore you have to come back, because actually that's what you want. So, yeah. Yes.
If that is so, then all of the disciples' destination only go to Vrindavan, right? Because some might go to Vaikuntha planet, some might go to Narasimha planet, and some might go to different planet, some might go to Vrindavan. But our spiritual master, the Gaudiya Sampradaya, belongs to the Vrindavan, right? In that case, if some disciples go to Vaikuntha planet, how does the connection happen? The Guru is in the world of Vrindavan.
Srila Prabhupada said that the spiritual master manifests in an infinity of forms. It's not static, and it's not material. So, you know, it's not like there's one person has to keep like jumping around all different places to check out what his disciples are doing. This is part of the inconceivable identity and difference that we spoke of earlier, the achintya bheda bheda. How he can be Krishna at the same time and he's a jiva. It's not something we can conceive of, but he does this. It's a mystical thing for us, but this is possible. The same spiritual master is there. Yes, yes. Another thing is this. Even if you want to look at it in terms of static time and place, then one disciple wants 100% of what his guru is offering. Another disciple only wants 60 or 70%. You got it? So he's going to give that. So that's another way to see it. He's able to take you to Golok Vrindavan. But if you want to go to, Vaikuntha instead, then no problem. You can, by mercy, he can do that for you.
I have a small problem.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have eternal families in the spiritual world.
Yes.
So, because I understand that we have families in relationships within the spiritual world.
Yes.
So, suppose if the family means everybody are now in the material world, and maybe in one family, internal family, the husband or wife might go back to Godhead, and the wife will not be able to go back to Godhead. In that case, the husband will be feeling emptiness or something like that. Because these are different families, and no other family can fit into that position. So
Yeah, well, this is a nice illustration of why we say it's achintya. For us in this world, it's very hard for us to imagine what spiritual relationships are about, and that's why we have to come to the liberated stage first, We can do that through bhakti alone, through chanting Hare Krishna. But to really appreciate the ultimate worth of this Hare Krishna Mahamantra, we have to chant it on the liberated platform, which means we're free of the influence of the material gunas, we're free of the influence of karma, we're free of our ignorance and our attachments. Then we can understand more about spiritual relationships. Once that happens, then we can understand very clearly that the material attachments of this world do not apply in the spiritual world. They're gone. They dissolve. It's not that relationships in general dissolve, but material relationships and our attachment to those, that will be dissolved because it's actually ignorance. But people are afraid of spiritual life, and Prabhupada writes about this in his purport to chapter 4, text 10 of Bhagavad Gita. People think that spiritual life is either some kind of homogeneous, light or something like that, vague, without any kind of personality. And so, they would rather opt for this material world because there's all kinds of society, friendship, and love here, and variety. On the other hand, there are also people who are afraid of personality because the personality and the variety and the activities of this world generally involve so much suffering, isn't it? We have dysfunctional relationships in this material. It's very common. And all of our attachments, they will eventually be taken away from us, or they will backfire on us and cause us suffering. All the variety is, some things are very appealing and some things are really repulsive. So people are afraid when they hear that personality is there in the spiritual world, that you, wait a minute, I've had enough of that. That's why Buddhism is so popular now. Think about it. There's no variety, there's no authority, there's no, and you have to be nice to people at the same time, so it's cool. But, people really, they just have no idea about spiritual personality. When we try to understand the Bhagavatam from the mundane platform, it will not work. We will only accumulate misconceptions. And that's why Srila Prabhupada is constantly on every other page of his books emphasizing you have to recognize what does it mean when we say Dehi no asmin yatha dehe kaumadam yovanam jara ityadi. We really have to recognize, this is all part and parcel of recognizing that I'm not this material body. Once you understand that, then anything about Krishna consciousness can be properly understood. Otherwise, it's very difficult. And so we have to cultivate. We have to follow the science very strictly. We have to follow the process very determinedly, and we have to cultivate knowledge. Shastra Gyan. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you so much, Guruji. Last question.
Okay, that's why you're waving your phone. I was wondering. Yeah, okay. Egg or question, then we're done.
So, Guruji, yesterday you were very beautifully explaining about the three kinds of chanting, Nama, Vas, and Namagara, and Sudha chanting. So, how do we actually reach to the Sudha chanting, Guruji? I think it's impossible in this lifetime or something like that.
That's usual when we're new or when we're neophyte. We have very little faith. But as we apply the instructions that we hear, seriously apply them, really seriously apply them, then we get the realization and we can see, I can do this. Things that used to bother us no longer bother us. Attachments that we used to have, they fall away. It's like when children grow up. You see the children fighting like anything over some silly toy. And then, 6 months later, he's already grown out of it. This is what happens, but it only happens if you're following the process very sincerely and seriously. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. There are people who go through their whole life. Actually, Krishna consciousness is just a continuation of the same maturation. We need to keep growing up, but people don't do that because they opt for sense gratification instead of dharma. If they were real human beings and followed their dharma, then they would come to Krishna consciousness. And through Krishna consciousness, they would become liberated. And then they go back to Godhead. And they're not beset with doubts. And they're not troubled by attachments. Because they're mature. We don't mature because we're doing something that retards our growth. And those are the offenses and the material sinful activities also, and material attachments in general. So we have to patiently, determinedly, enthusiastically stick with the process in good association, in the proper manner, and while avoiding all offenses and sins. Then it's definitely guaranteed we will advance, and we can do this. This is the point. It's not impossible. That's why Krishna says, Bohovo jnana tapasa puta madbhavam agata. Many people in the past, he tells Arjuna, they've done this. It means that implicitly he's telling you can do this too. So can you. Okay? Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Gaur Bhaktivedanta ki jai. So I'm sorry to be rude, but we have a plane to catch in a matter of hours, so have to run and prepare for that. Otherwise we would stay. And there's a good crowd tonight, and I'm happy to speak and chant and relish your association. But thank you very much for hosting us here in Portland, Oregon. It's been a wonderful stay, although it's too short. Maybe we can come back if Krishna wills next year. Thank you. Hare Krishna.